Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds here, back again this week. We're talking sophomore step-ups, former rookies going into their second year in NFL. Who are good values for your Dynasty team?
No more tight ends.
You guys picked them all, so I didn't get any, but I picked a couple receivers that I do like.
Let's get in this gargantuous episode.
Ready, set, hut, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson. Here are my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
I would ask how it's going, but
Tumultuous.
I already know.
So we've been in studio now for roughly 2 hours.
Yep.
We've had some major technical difficulties. We don't know what's going on. Still,
It's a ghost in the machine.
some things are working, some aren't.
We're the Sam Darnold, and the computer is the New England Patriots.
And it's not going to show up on this podcast, on YouTube or anything. But the second I finally got it all figured out, I hit go, grabbed my mic, and the whole mic just fell off the desk. The arm just ripped right off. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. Come on. So here we go.
Yeah, I'm sleepy now.
That's how this is going right now.
2 hours of like sitting in this chair without like talking Dynasty, just talking to you guys like regular folks.
Just regular old people.
Yep.
Gross. So there will be no Nerd Herd show coming out like right away. We have to figure that out. We're probably going to do a remote show to get that out this week. We will figure it out. Either we do it on Discord for the Nerd Herd or we just put a show out via remote. We will have to figure that out.
We'll figure it out, yeah.
But we are drastically behind.
So
this show, too, will be a little bit shorter than normal because we've already been going at it. So let's get into it. First, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FFPC. This is something I jumped into, and I really hope you guys take advantage of this, too, because it's a chance to win some mucho dinero, right? Our friends at FFPC have a special playoff challenge going on right now for all of our fantasy football friends. There are two separate playoff challenge contests, a $35 entry and a $200 entry. Both contests have the same exact rules and format. A $200 entry contest has a $500,000 grand prize, $1.4 million in total prizes. A $35 entry contest has a $100,000 grand prize, $476,000 in total prizes. So, it's a playoff challenge contest that runs the length of the entire NFL playoffs, starting on January 14th with the wild card weekend games and ending on February 12th with the Super Bowl. There's no draft or salary cap. You simply select your roster once. This roster will be your roster for the entire duration of the contest. There'll be no waivers, no free agency. Each roster will consist of 12 NFL players in the following starting roster format: 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, 4 flex of a wide receiver, running back, tight end, 1 kicker, 1 defense. You may only choose 1 player per team, and you may choose from any of the 14 playoff teams. For instance, if you select Tom Brady as your quarterback, you can't select any other Buccaneers for your roster, including kickers and defense. Rosters lock on Saturday, January 14th at 4:35. There's Eastern time. There's no free agency or roster adjustments for the duration of the contest. FFP scoring rules in effect are running backs and wide receivers equal 1 PPR, tight ends equal 1.5 PPR.
So the championship game is going to be a 2-player versus 2-player showdown? Is that how that thing is going to end up?
Basically,
Pretty much. Yeah.
Right?
So each week's score will be added to your team's total, which will accumulate during the duration of the contest. Super Bowl points will count as double towards your team's total. Teams with the most points at the end win the big money. Click the link in the show description to sign up for either the $35 entry or the $200 entry. But here's the big kicker, guys, gals. If you use the promo code NERDS when you sign up, you're going to get $25 off your entry.
That's crazy.
$25 off.
A $35 entry.
Do a $35 entry.
Promo code NERDS.
You have to be a new sign-up.
I'm not going to lie, sons. I'm going for the big 500 gusto.
Do it.
I'm doing it. So
Time to strategize.
Promo code NERDS, ffpc.com. Get over there now. Check it out. Use that promo code, and hopefully you can come away with the grand prize. But remember, there's tons of more prizes outside the grand prize.
Tons of more.
Tons of mores.
Tons of more gargantuans of prizes. Yeah. I didn't say orangutans. I said gargantuans.
There we go.
Is a gargantuan also an animal?
I don't think so. I think it's just
Yep.
A size.
Oh, look at that cute little gargantuan over there.
That's not a thing.
With his big, bugly, gargantuous eyes.
There's like a
Bugly.
Gigantopithecus or something like that a long time ago. That was
Like
a thing.
was that like a prehistoric?
Yeah.
Sounds delicious. All right, let's talk about our show topic today. What are we talking about today? We're talking about sophomore step-ups.
I was gonna say it because I thought you were asking, and then I realized it was a rhetorical question.
Rhetorical. He
So
just
I
wants-
just made a snake
He
noise.
just needs to keep. Wow, slap happiness is
I'm a
settled
snake.
in.
Slippery, slithery snake. Wow. So sophomore steps up.
Usually we're not this slap happy in the
We're
first show
not.
because
I think it's just like frustration too.
Yeah.
I think you laugh to keep from crying,
yes,
kind of thing.
one of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sophomore step ups though, or second year step ups. Either way, it just rolls right off the
Right
tongue.
off the tongue
with
like
the S,
like a snake.
like a snake.
Slippery, slithering. So sophomore step, a guy who's going in from his rookie year to his sophomore year in the NFL. Players that we think are good buys now that hold good value. So we're not going to talk about Kenneth Walker because good luck with that.
Expensive.
He costs a pretty penny. Told you guys he was sweet. So always my 1-2. You know,
Swing.
Garrett Wilson's pretty sweet too.
Yeah, I was
Yes,
gonna
he
say.
is.
But anyways,
I like Garrett Wilson a lot.
so my sophomore step up is Garrett Wilson. Oh no, I got a guy who didn't finish his running back one, Breece Hall.
Breece Hall.
So we're talking about a couple guys here. We're gonna get in, kind of talk about them a little bit. Some news today though in Dynasty World is the Cardinals, after firing everybody, are gonna
They
try
go.
and trade DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep. Yeah. That's going to be a whole different little look on that team, right? I would imagine they're going to get rid of AJ Green as well. It's going to be,
Rondell Moore and Hollywood Brown.
Hollywood Brown and Rondell Moore.
Makes
It
them
will
both
be
a buy.
The shortest wide receiver core in the NFL.
Ooh, true story, homie. Let's say draft like Quentin Johnson.
They might. They've always liked the receiver, but it depends on who their new head coach is.
I mean, that could be a totally different look. You would imagine they're still going to use, Kyler's running ability and stuff
Sure.
like that. So, it's going to be a lot of turnover here.
I think it makes both those guys a buy. I think it makes Marquise Brown a buy, who we just kind of talked about before. Them giving him a first round pick for him kind of made it clear that even though the GM now is gone, so it actually doesn't make anything clear now because even though they give him a first round pick,
He was balling, though, when he was the guy.
He was playing very well.
good report, Kyler.
Yep.
They got to make him happy. He runs the show now.
Yeah, and if he could nearly get 1,000 yards in Baltimore's very run-happy attack, you would imagine whatever kind of attack they have there in Arizona next year is going to be more pass-happy than the Baltimore one that he came from when he was a borderline wide receiver one. Or wide
Late
receiver
first
two.
for Marquise Brown,
Yeah, I would.
I feel good about that, yeah. Late first.
mid to late second from Rondale Moore.
Yeah, I would.
Count me out on him. I know that you like him as a buy, I just don't like him as a player.
I think he's okay.
I think he's a good player. It's injuries.
Yep, that's what it is.
I wouldn't be surprised if they draft a big body receiver. They have a lot of draft picks.
They do.
A lot of draft capital, multiple firsts, multiple thirds. So
Trey McBride is a guy that,
ooh, another
probably could have been on this list here today. and
sophomore
wasn't.
step up.
Sure.
Well, we were told that we couldn't do any more tight ends, so
We were banned from it.
yeah.
Oh, from the executive producer.
Yeah,
That's right.
From the executive.
All right.
We do tend to pick a lot. of
One
tight
call
ends.
to the executive producer, and this whole thing just started working again.
He didn't even do anything.
No, just a call to
The
him.
light came on.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, is that Jared? Oh, we're good."
Yeah, we're back.
The light after 2 hours.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. All right, let's jump into our guys here, talk about them a little bit. And first guy on my list is actually Jerome Ford, running back for the Cleveland Browns. Came out of Cincinnati, started his career at Alabama.
Right.
If you don't remember that, played behind Najee Harris, Damian Harris, so he didn't get a lot of reps. So he transferred to Cincinnati, where his career really took off. So he's used to having some patience back there. The biggest reason I like Jerome Ford as a sneaky buy, which you could literally probably get him for a 4th round pick possibly here right now. I'd like to throw him as a throw-in on the trade there, or a trade for draft day, because with Dearness Johnson being a free agent and Kareem Hunt being a free agent, this is a player they spent a 5th round pick on last year. This is a team that does not have a lot of draft capital due to the Deshaun Watson trade. So they have their second. They have a compensatory pick in the 3rd for the Vikings hiring the GM. I forgot his name. I can't pronounce it. It's difficult.
Yep.
So they have a 3rd round pick too, but they don't have a lot of draft capital. So they have a lot of needs on defense, definitely the defensive line. So the odds of them using another one on a running back here don't seem very high. They also don't have a lot of salary cap. So they're not going to come in and sign somebody as well when they're already paying Nick Chubb. And it's easy to say, well, Nick Chubb doesn't get all the carries, but that's not how Stefanski really runs his offense. If you watch the Browns, you would know that Nick Chubb's usually off on third downs. And with Jerome Ford, what he brings in is somebody who's, yes, his vision's not great. It's probably his biggest knock, actually, is his vision. But he's somebody who came in, played a little bit in November, and looked pretty good doing it. They put him in the kickoff spot. He looked really good. Somebody who could actually catch the ball. Didn't have a ton of carries coming out, obviously, because of playing Cincinnati. But Cleveland ran the ball last year. I know this is going to be a different offense with Deshaun Watson, but they ran the ball on average 31.3 times a game this past year in 2022 on average, in which was fifth most in the NFL. Atlanta was number one. They ran it 32.9 times a game, so it's a little bit more than one time more than Cleveland did. And with Ford, like I said, going back to probably like November, I mean, he showed he's pretty explosive at the running back position. So if he's going to come in and be the change of pace running back with Nick Chubb and be the third down running back, he's just one injury away from Nick Chubb to be the starting running back for the Cleveland Browns and being viable that way. And we know definitely in Dynasty, like anytime you get any running back that has an opportunity, even anytime in the season, they hold value. So right now, I'm looking at Jerome Ford as a nice buy for a throw-in come draft day. Somebody likes my fourth round pick. Let me get Jerome Ford for that. It's a good situation for him. Good enough to get signed by Alabama. Again, just stuck behind guys like Josh Jacobs, Damian Harris, Najee Harris. But then help carry Cincinnati to the playoffs.
Yep.
The college football playoffs as well.
And that it is all about opportunity for him. I mean, with Kareem Hunt moving on and Ernest Johnson going away in free agency, likely going away in free agency, I think it's great for a guy like this who flashed a little bit and then kind of disappeared. He's fallen off a lot of people's radars, especially the people that don't follow really, really closely. So I think that does make him a nice guy to go out and I think target in the offseason, just because he's going to have a little bit of a depressed value. Just because if somebody just looks at his stats, they're not going to jump off the page at you as anything crazy. But it's a very different situation going into year two, and I think he flashed enough that you go, oh, all right, I think this guy could do it if he gets the opportunity. So that's what I like about Jerome Ford. I do think that's a nice little buy because I think he's gonna be cheap, and all it takes, like you said, one injury, and then he's all of a sudden in your starting lineup.
There's not a lot of trades for Jerome Ford because he's not a highly coveted player up until this point. But there were some back in December, and you're right, 2/4 for Jerome Ford. Colt McCoy, which I'm guessing that was when Kyler went down and he was the starter, so they needed somebody for a couple games.
Nice,
here's Jerome
opportunistic.
Ford.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt Ryan, and you got Jerome Ford and a fourth. So yeah, not much. Once people catch up that he's probably going to be the RB2 on the team, that price will probably go up. So this is the right time to go buy. My only question is, are we worried about Felton doing some things on third down, or do you think they've gotten to the point where they're kind of washing their hands of it?
And there's times that Felton was even inactive, and I think he showed us enough that he'll 100% be active just because of what he does on special teams, returning kicks. Demetric Felton hasn't shown anything, even when given the opportunity.
He did his rookie season, but he was like non-existent this year.
And they drafted Jerome Ford to take his place. So I mean, they didn't need to draft Ford. They had Ernest Johnson. They had Kareem Hunt. It was kind of a surprise draft pick.
It was.
But they took best player available, and he's now going to find himself in an opportunity.
Yep.
Maybe they bring Ernest Johnson back. Maybe they don't. But like you said, with the Colt McCoy trade, this is a perfect opportunity even before draft time. Like right now, I'm like, hey, man, I'm just trying to shore up a couple things. Looks like you use a little bit of help. I'll take Jerome Ford. Or hey, you have this running back. I'll give you this backup that's –
well, and guys love, especially now that there's going to be a lot of players changing teams, deep dynasty leagues, people love to have their quarterbacks backups. So maybe where does Derek Carr go? Okay, figure out who his backup is, and you could trade him for Jerome Ford then, or something like that.
Sure. There's some risk here because there's a chance maybe the Browns draft somebody else in a fifth round pick. It's such a deep class, right? Maybe they use somebody in the fourth round. Maybe they bring back Ernest Johnson for cheap. Maybe Ernest Johnson can't find a contract due to the abundance of running backs that are free agents and how deep the class is. Maybe Ernest Johnson can come back on a minimum contract as well. So,
but there's no risk though. Like even though there's risk that could happen, like I lost my fourth. Dang it.
And the big thing here too is Andrew Berry, the GM of the Cleveland Browns, loves his draft picks. Like, since he's been the GM of the Browns, he's cut one draft pick off of this roster. That is it. Yeah. He loves his draft picks. So the fact that Jerome Ford is his pick just last year, they do want to see these guys develop and give an opportunity. So I would, as somebody who's really familiar with the Browns, I think it's very likely that Jerome Ford will be the handcuff to Nick Chubb going into 2023. And with Deshaun Watson and this offense taking a change, we don't know how that's going to look, but we know the way Stefanski calls plays that he likes to run the ball, he likes to mix it, and the fact that he takes Nick Chubb out consistently on third down. And not only on third down, there'll be drives, like 2-minute drives when he'll take Nick Chubb out for entire series.
It's true.
So there's a possibility Ford could be potentially a flex play even in season if the cards play out. And then if Deshaun Watson goes down for any reason whatsoever, then it's going to be a heavy run game, and Jerome Ford will be involved. Matt, who is your sophomore step up?
All right, so my sophomore step up is he's a slightly, I guess, more high-profile guy than Jerome Ford. I'm going to go James Cook. On the year, he was running back 44 in PPR. So it's not like he was crazy high on anyone's end-of-year list or anything like that. But obviously, he was a guy that came along more towards the end of the year, right? I mean, that's kind of when he started to shine. So I took a little snippet there between weeks, I think, 13, 14, 15, 16, because he obviously didn't play 17 and I didn't have 18 stats. And in that time frame, he was running back 16 overall in PPR. Just shows, like what he's at least capable of kind of getting to. And that was sharing time with Devin Singletary. And Singletary's a free agent. The only two running backs that are on the books for next year currently are James Cook and Nyheim Hines. Now Hines has a buyout or has an out in his contract as well. So depending on how they view him, he might even be gone, and it might just be James Cook and whomever else they bring in. Draft. Right. So when you dig into his stats a bit, James Cook was way more efficient than Devin Singletary. 80 rushes, 462 yards for a 5.77 yards per carry average, 2 touchdowns. Against Singletary's 170 carries, 790, 4.64, and 5 touchdowns. And they both catch passes well. Cook has 31 targets, 19 receptions, 174 yards and a touchdown. And Singletary, 52 targets, 37 receptions, 177 yards and a touchdown. When you start digging in a bit, though, they run against very light boxes. I looked at that, and I was very surprised. Their average box is 6.29 for Singletary and 6.22. So that's less than 7 players in the box at all times. So even though James Cook isn't the biggest guy ever, he's not exactly going against these big stack boxes. Everyone's playing the pass.
The Bills are spreading out.
Rightly so.
Yep.
And he also catches passes nicely. So even if he is the only guy left with Nyheim Hines on the roster, I think he's got a very excellent chance of, operating between the tackles better than people think that he should be able to, and also catching a ton of passes next year, because that's just what this Bills offense does. That's what James Cook is good at. So I'm really going out on a limb and thinking that Singletary is going to be gone. I don't think Singletary's ever shown what they want in a running back. It seems like they're always kind of looking for another guy. They went out and traded for Nyheim Hines. They drafted James Cook this year. They got rid of Zach Moss, who was kind of a plotter in between the tackle type of guy. And now Singletary's coming up on the end of his contract. To me, this all kind of spells them turning the page. Them wanting to go with James Cook. Yeah. And it's not like they're flush with a bunch of money either to try to bring in a guy. They're
a free agent.
Yeah, they're bottom of the middle to bottom of where they have as far as cap projections next year.
And they invested a second-round pick into him.
Right, it's a second-round draft pick.
He's one of the highest drafted running backs of this class. Right. It's somewhat of a shock when he got selected where he did. So he's got the draft investment capital. He's got the opportunity, because you said Devin Singletary is going to go on. If they believed in Devin Singletary, they're not drafting James Cook in the second round for somebody who does somewhat similar, even though Devin Singletary is a little probably better between the tackles.
He's a little shorter and stouter, I would call him. I don't know that he operates better between the tackles. I really don't. I think James Cook is a little underrated there. And like I said,
I think he has more power than James Cook.
That's a better way to say it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind this buy at all, and I've never been the biggest James Cook guy, but even I don't mind this. I think this is a good time to buy, capitalize on the upside, because worst case scenario is they decide that they're going to dip into the draft pool and take another running back. That is the worst case scenario for James Cook. But the good news is I think he established himself enough this year that he would still maintain that third down role, and he would still get used 5-6 times a game between the tackles as well. So I still think worst case scenario, we're going to see similar-ish usage to what we saw at the end of this year.
Wide receiver 16 or running back 16 numbers.
Right. Best case scenario, they don't take anybody, and he has most of the work. I don't think anybody at this point has all the work,
right,
but he gets 65% of the work to himself. And then that's an amazing buy. So if that happens, home run. But even worst case scenario, I think I still think it's a pretty safe buy.
Snap shares was another one I forgot to get to. Snap shares for Devin Singletary, 67% and only 22.6 for Cook. So he has a lot of room to go up as far as snap shares and opportunity and stuff like that. So
and I'm not as worried about them drafting a running back this year, spending a second last year on Cook. I can't imagine going back to back. And you could easily argue their bigger need is at wide receiver over running back.
Right. No.
So if they're going to go offense, or I know they signed Dawson Knox to extensions, so they don't need a tight end, but Stephon Diggs a little bit older there. Gabe Davis kind of up in the areas, the early dynasty darling. There's going to be some really good value in the second round, early third round of this NFL draft. So they might be able to get this go receiver there over running back. So the running back they even do draft might not even be a threat to Cook, who has got the draft catapult in the second round. Yep. And this offense, like you said, without the stack box, that alone presents opportunity. Definitely for a player like him, getting him the ball in the flat, short screens right there, offers tremendous upside for a PPR running back. Could be the kind of guy, if everything plays out, could be a sneaky running back one next year, that low end running back one for James Cook for your dynasty team. And right now, he's probably going to cost you a pretty high second, is what I imagine. That's pretty close to probably where he got drafted at. So it's probably going to cost you anywhere from 2.1 to 2.5 for James Cook. So your best bet's going to be hoping that somebody falls in love with somebody in his class.
Yep.
And it's got to be somebody that falls in love that you don't love as well, because let's face it, at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, when you're on the clock, there's going to be somebody that you're infatuated with.
And there will be, but there's also like good opportunities to get a stack or something like that.
Yeah.
Depending on who's out there trying to get James Cook. So yeah,
I do see multiple trades of a second and a third for James Cook. That's kind of the most common one. Then there's other ones that are players like DeAndre Hopkins, straight up for James Cook. So that's that. I think your range is pretty realistic. This one's a 24 first, but he's also you get James Cook and a second.
I like that trade of Hopkins for Cook, because it seems right away you're like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins, who's probably got another year or two left in him, but Cook offers another 2 to 3 more years as well.
Sure.
Similar lifespan. What's harder to get, the running back or the receiver?
100%. It's the running backs, man.
So yeah, it's a very interesting player. Maybe a guy like Calvin Ridley can get it done. A guy like DeAndre Hopkins. There's definitely an avenue. What's nice about him is he's obtainable. He's not the most unobtainable running back
now, and you can get him cheap now. Who knows next year if all these guys clear out and it's just him, the price goes up.
Yeah, it's gonna be gargantuous.
Exactly.
And that's a dangerous animal.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. Watch your step. The first one that I'm going to go with here for my sophomore step up, arguably the biggest name of the guys that we ended up picking.
Sounds pretty gargantuous.
He's pretty gargantuan. But I still think I picked this player because I think that there's still a lot more room in his actual value and perceived value to still go up quite a bit. So I ended up going with Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson this year, 523 yards and 7 touchdowns on 35 receptions. So nothing like overly exciting to write home about. 500 yards, 7 touchdowns, like that's solid. But we have to remember a few things. He did miss time due to injury.
Missed a chunk.
Missed a chunk of time right in the middle of the season. And then on top of that, he had this period where I don't know exactly what happened. I think he was recovering from the injury. I don't know if it was that or if he was getting back into how the offense had changed since Carson Wentz was gone and now Tyler Heineke was in there. So there was this kind of period right after his injury where he was still figuring things out one way or another, whether it was injury or plays related. But if you take his beginning of the season and then once he got back into the normal offense again, he averaged around 14 points per game. Now, right now on the season, that would be ahead of guys on a per game basis, guys like Mike Williams, his teammate Terry McLaurin.
How dare you?
Michael Pittman Jr., I needed to say that. DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, even Debo. So, I mean, he actually, when he was normal and healthy in the offense, he was absolutely producing.
What about when Mike Williams was normal and healthy?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
How about that?
When was that?
If we're gonna cherry pick,
John Dotson was a little bit inflated. He did score touchdowns.
Yep.
So that point's a little inflated, but he did look. He did shine. He did look pretty good. There's at times that he looked better than Terry McLaurin at times.
Exactly, and we have. I think of all of the guys are like, oh yeah, he was a first round pick. He was a first round pick. I feel like Dotson was the one that like kind of got forgotten that he was also a first round pick.
totally came out of the gate hot. Everyone remembered it for those first few games.
First 3 games, yeah. And then everyone kind of forgot about him and he faded away. So, I was looking into the trade browser and I mean, somebody had the audacity to give him away basically straight up for Jaylen Warren, the backup running back for the Steelers. So
You gotta be.
I'm hoping that was maybe like tied to like Devi or something, and there was another piece.
There's got to be something
or something.
Steelers fan.
But I'm seeing a lot of 23 firsts, which I'm assuming are late 23 first. And right now, as much as I like this class, I like Jahan Dotson pretty similarly to just about anybody in this class at the wide receiver position.
Smith and Jigba?
Not far off. I would probably take Smith and Jigba, but not by much. Like after him and maybe Johnston, I'd probably have him third, and I don't even know for certain that I have Dotson behind those guys. Like as a prospect, Dotson ranked really highly for me, and he showed me nothing during the year to say that he wasn't that guy. And we also have to remember that the Commanders, now we don't know that they're getting it fixed, but pretty poor quarterback play.
Wait till Derek Carr's throwing the
all of that would be incredible for him.
They got rid of the offensive coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. Scott Turner got fired.
Yeah, it was all his fault.
Right. They're basically giving up. I think they're getting rid of Carson Wentz, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's like,
I think so.
They're turning the page there.
You mean they're going to pay him $30 million to send the bench?
Sam Howell might be the only guy that's on the roster now that might be
good.
Yeah.
Look good. I let him compete. I would sign Derek Carr and let him compete with Sam Howell.
I don't think Derek Carr is going to come there if you're telling me he's going to have to compete for somebody, because there's plenty of teams that would say you're a starter right now.
That's true too. No. I wonder where Derek Carr goes. We should do a free agency show soon.
We should,
like pre-free agency show.
Pre-free.
Pre-free.
We'll call it pre-free.
Love it. Done and done.
I do that when I go to the bathroom. P-free. All right.
Not P-free.
Oh. Free.
P. Prediction?
Prize picks.
Sorry. No
we do all love for a prediction strike. Yep. But we're still talking about prize picks though. Prize picks, best place to do your player props. And look, I'm all in on player props now. Now that Ohio has legal sports betting, I have been all over the over-unders. Which guy's going to do it? Like, I even did NBA the other night. I don't watch NBA enough to do NBA.
I told myself I wouldn't, but I couldn't help myself.
It was exactly $80. I was like, Kevin Durant, only 1.5 threes? Definitely in the over. Crushed that. Too bad I missed like 3 of the other 4 in the parlay, but that doesn't matter. I hit that one. But best place to do your overs and unders. You can mix sports. So yes, football season's winding down, but still can do playoff games at Prize Picks. You can do NBA action. You can even do like MMA, soccer. Like you can do just about anything you want. If you want to say, look, LeBron James is going to drop 25. I'm going to hit the over tonight. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to throw over 280 yards. And you can just mesh all that together and win yourself up to 10 times your money. That's right. Go over to Prize Picks, use promo code NERDS, and receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. 100 Prize Picks.
Nice. All right, my next sophomore step up is Daniel Bellinger, tight end for the New York Giants. You got to acquire as many of these tight ends as possible because you need the elite, right? The elite are the only true difference makers. They're the ones that give you the edge in Dynasty, and Daniel Bellinger could be just that. he's somebody comes in, he has fantastic hands. You got to remember, this is a guy who only had 3 drops his entire college career. Fast, explosive. Somewhat curious how he's going to translate to the NFL because they did ask him to block a lot at San Diego State. But he's somebody who, when we watched his tape, we really liked him coming out.
The glimpses, that you got in the passing game, we all liked. Yep.
So got drafted by the Giants in the 4th round, and he became a starter immediately. Opening day, was a starter, looked pretty good early. Brian Dable was talking him up, saying, "Hey, this is a guy is a knack getting open for us. He can find space. He's making key plays for us."
They hit him up at the end of round, and he scored a touchdown on that one. Even they're getting him involved in the running game.
And right here, what the biggest thing with tight ends, it's not just about you have an abundance of equals, is opportunity, right? Like, how do you get outside of that middle impact? It's just about being opportunity and targets. And right now, it's hard to foresee where the Giants are going to go. But as of right now, there's not a lot of other things to really worry about on the Giants. They have Wan'Dale Robinson next year and Kenny Galladay. That's it. Because
Kenny Galladay's still going to be there.
I looked into it. So Sterling Shepard, Richie James, and Darius Slayton are free agents. So I looked at Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay signed a 4-year, $72 million contract with the Giants with $17 million sign-in bonus. But their out isn't until 2024. They have like a 21. For 2023, Galladay is going to earn $13.2 million, a $4.5 million bonus. He has a cap hit of $21.4 million, a dead cap value of $14.7 million.
Chop post June 1st, that dude. Split that in 2 years
so
and get rid of him. Man. No way.
Which is a possibility, which is what I would do. But I'm just saying he has a hit, and they have no other receivers there. I would post June him and split up as well. So right now he has an opportunity to be the guy there. Outside, they're probably going to sign somebody. They're
going to sign somebody, then they're probably going to draft somebody too.
Regardless if Kenny Galladay is there or not, he's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking up targets. So let's
there's a chance Odell Beckham resigns there, who'd be an older receiver. They spent a second on Wan'Dale Robinson,
right.
But Bellinger looks like he had a really good rapport with Daniel Jones. They're probably going to sign Daniel Jones to a contract extension. He had a really good rookie year. Brian Dable is looking upon him with smiles. Opportunity comes to tight ends.
He was starting to really get the ball rolling, and then he broke the orbital bone in his face and had to miss a bunch of time. So, I mean, that was just like one of those freak things that somebody's hand ended up getting right inside of his mask and popping him, So, I think he played with a visor the rest of the season when he came back, but it's hard to get the ball rolling again once the season, your team's been without you for 4 or 5, however many games that was, and they're trying to play for the playoffs. To his credit, though, he still did a little bit. He was still getting involved. It just wasn't probably to the extent that it was earlier in the season.
He was viable early as a starting tight end. I look for 2023 to put him towards the middle of the pack. And I like to buy these kind of guys now before they start to establish themselves. So, when I play Dynasty, I'm always figuring out, like, okay, what tight end has some opportunity to come up here? Because usually it's like this 3rd year breakout usually takes for tight ends. I mean, some of them, your Darren Waller, takes 8 years. But a lot of times it takes a couple of years for your tight ends to come into the league and start to get going. I love what Brian Dable does as a coach. I love what he does with his offense. We saw Dawson Knox get better and better a little bit every year out there in Buffalo. I look for the same thing for Daniel Bellinger. Do I think he's going to come out here and be a star elite tight end here in 2023? No, but I feel like his value is going to take a significant step up from where it is today. That orbital injury did kind of put a hamper on him. Same with Greg Dulcich. Like, Dulcich kind of took a hamper going on IR. I think he still will be more expensive than a guy like Daniel Bellinger, but he also has more weapons to work with. You would expect Russell Wilson to be way better in 23.
Right.
Jerry Jeudy had a fantastic year. Cortland Sutton as well. So I think Daniel Bellinger's in one of the prime spots right now that a tight end could be in, with Daniel Jones going to his second year in Brian Dable's offense, for him to come in and actually come and be a difference maker, because Wan'Dale Robinson is a smaller receiver as well. So if you're looking for a red zone threat as well, Daniel Bellinger can be that guy. Dable has already experimented with them, using them in different ways. Like you said, that end around that went for a touchdown. I think he's a fantastic buy, and you could probably get him for a 3rd round pick, even in a tight end premium league. Because this 23 class, where it's weak at receiver, there's going to be abundance of tight ends in this class as well. There's 2 projected tight ends to go in the first already, and there's probably another 2 to 3 that's going to go draft in the second round of the NFL draft. So there's going to be a good class there as well. I'm getting ahead of it. I'm trading for Daniel Bellinger. I would pay a 3rd round pick for Daniel Bellinger, no problem whatsoever.
Love Bellinger. I would also pay that price. I think he's one that's worth the squeeze.
It'll probably take 2/3 in a premium league.
Oh, in a premium, yeah.
It might take a second.
Actually, in a tight end premium, it's going to take a second. In a regular league, it's going to take probably 2/3. I would pay 2/3 in a regular league. I would pay a second in a tight end premium league. I want to see where these other tight ends go, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where these rookies go anyways. Daniel Bellinger's going to his second year, and it's all about opportunity. So I'm looking at opportunity here when it comes to that for Daniel Bellinger. So if there's a tight end that somebody falls in love with, they got drafted in the second round of the NFL draft, and they're at 2-8, he's sitting there, and I can get Daniel Bellinger because that person wants to draft him, I would much rather take Daniel Bellinger and take what I've already seen and what I expect to see in 23. Matt?
Sure. All right. Did you mention Greg Dulcich by any chance?
I sure did.
All right. I'm not going with him, but I am going with the guy that is
You
right.
had a tight end to back up your tight end?
Right below him, less than a point underneath him 2 points, 2.1 points.
Oh, never
below
mind,
him.
man.
Yeah, forget it. Never mind. This whole argument's out the window. Finished as tight end 28 on the year, and I can barely say his name. So Chig Okonkwo, right?
That's pretty close.
Okonkwo?
Yeah.
Okonkwo. I'm not even going to try his full name because I'm just going to butcher it. But anyway, tight end of the Tennessee Titans, rookie this past season. Totally unheralded. I feel like barely anyone's talking about him. He was a guy that he started off pretty slow. Mm-hmm. Back towards the end of the year, though, I mean, he was kind of viable weeks 13, 14, 15. He had 10.8, 18.5.
Since week 12, he was tight end 3 overall in PPR.
Since week 12. Okay, yeah. I mean, he put together some good weeks. Week 14, he had an 18.5, point outburst. And so that was what kind of put him on my radar. I loved his athleticism coming out of Maryland. He was a bit of a raw prospect, so I wasn't sure how quickly it was going to translate. I in no way, shape, or form did I think he was going to be kind of putting up this production in year one, especially with a guy like Austin Hooper on the team as well. But when you dig into the numbers a little bit, this guy right now is 6th in average target distance, 8.18. So he's not like just a close to the line of scrimmage type of guy.
He's getting downfield.
He's getting downfield a little bit. He's also 6th in fantasy points per target, 2.07, which is a really good mark for anybody, really. And the points per reception, he's 6th. He's got 12. He's on this list quite a bit at 6th. Target separation, he's 2.34 yards per separation per target. And where he really starts kind of separating himself is the yards per reception, number 1 out of all the tight ends, 14.67. So if he's number 6 at 8 something yards per target, and he's getting 14. That's every catch he's getting
big plays.
Yeah, he's getting an extra 6 yards after that. So that's what he's kind of good at. That's what he's kind of excelling at. And the guys below him, George Kittle, Dallas Goedert, Jordan Atkins, Dulcich, who everyone loves, is four spots below him, a couple yards per reception less. And then it's Hunter Henry, Foster Moreau, Travis Kelce's way down the list, 12.6 against 14.76. And the last but not least, the yardage per target, he's up over 10, and that's good for second. He's the only person that's ahead of him is Dallas Goedert, and the guys all around him: George Kittle, Will Disley, Jordan Atkins. It's all the big name guys. And yards per route run, he's number 1 as well, 3.2. So this guy, he's showing up in so many statistical categories where he's either top 6 or 1 or 2. That to me, there's just too many telltale signs that this guy, his athleticism is translating to the NFL, and that's the one thing that I wasn't sure if he was going to put it together, and he did it really quickly. Well, year one, not a lot of people are talking about him. That's why I think now is the time.
We see a lot of athletic freaks go at tight end, and it just doesn't always translate. It doesn't always pan out.
Right.
So it was kind of easy to just we'll see. He was drafted late, but. No, he's put it together. He's shown that he can make legitimate plays at a position where we're begging to have players that are making plays. There's so few of them. So if you give me a player that even if it doesn't pan out and you tell me, Garrett, you're going to have to trade a late second round pick right now for a guy that has the ability to be a number one tight end, but might not be, that's fine. Like, I will absolutely take that chance.
I did
all
that
day.
a couple of years ago with Juwan Johnson, and it was like within his first 2 games of just seeing him score touchdowns and look dominant in the red zone. I sent a second round draft pick to him, and I'm sure people in the league thought I was insane. And I sat on him until this year, and it's starting to pan out now. You know what I mean? Like, he's starting to look like a guy that is going to be very viable week in and week out. And is just a mismatch and a nightmare because he was a former wide receiver,
Right.
you know what I mean, that transitioned, and Chig, I think, could be a guy that could also be just a nightmare to match up with.
And you're talking about the last third of the league, the last third of the year from week 12 on. I mean, he really did come out and dominate. I mean, he averaged over 10 points per game, averaged 11.9 points per game, which is better than Travis Kelce, better than. If you're better than doing Kelce, that's all you really got to say. and Matt, you went through all the stats he was leading at. So, they fired their offensive coordinator, Todd Downing, today. We don't know for sure if Ryan Tannehill is going to be the quarterback in 2023, but this is a long-term play.
Yep.
So, and I love it. And does it cost you a second? Probably not.
No, I don't think you would have to give that. I don't
think you would have to.
I think he's in the third or maybe 2/3.
Easy third round buy for me for your upside. And like you said, if you have to stash him for 2 more years, that's fine. If it flames out, so what as well. But this is kind of the upside player that you are going to go for. Again, opportunity. You're talking about target share. I know Treylon Burks and all those guys were hurt, at the end of the year too. But I mean, you're talking about the last couple of games. Like, he tied for the lead in target share. You're seeing almost 18% in target share for his team.
And you were talking earlier, as I can't remember who it was. You said put him in as a throw-in. I think he's a perfect throw-in. He's a perfect cherry on top type of guy where the person who has him will be like, I'll give him up because who knows what he'll be.
Yeah.
And then you end up with this guy on your roster and he kind of sits there and you can foster him on your roster.
It's a part of strategy in Dynasty that you have to, it's a game you have to play, right? When there's a number one target that you want, they have to go make a trade and try and you're offering a player for a player that you're giving up more value, and you let the player know that, and you need us a little bit more on top. Hey, how about you give up this player? But the whole plan was just to get that player, and that's where Chig comes into, I think. Or, again, any player we're probably talking about here, Jerome Ford could fall in that category. Obviously, Chig offers way more upside than Jerome Ford, but I love the buy. I love the statistics. I love the upside. Again, target share. We're talking about a team. Will Robert Woods be on the Tennessee Titans in 2023? I don't know.
Who knows?
Probably doesn't matter.
Yeah. Exactly. So you have Treylon Burks.
I think Austin Hooper might be the guy that you have to really worry about. Hooper was a guy that had
just because he's going to be on the field.
He had I think 50. No, not. I can't find. Oh, the target share, the snap share. He was at over 50%, 52.7, and Chig was down at 36. So if that could flip. I mean, just if they notice that Chig is, doing all his assignments as he's supposed to as a tight end, and then he's much more efficient in the passing game, I think it's just a matter of time before Austin Hooper gets overtaken by a more athletic tight end yet again, because he's just kind of a plotter.
Yeah, I saw some stats online. I think it was courtesy of actually Draft Sharks that had him at, over the last 3 games, it was like a 45.7% route participation. For him there for the last 3 games.
So they are starting to catch on.
They're starting to catch up. He was running 17.7 routes per game. So, yeah, I mean, a great buy. I love it as a nice sophomore step up.
All right, last one. And this is the one I have the least information on just because we don't know. We don't know what's 100% going on with this player, how things are going to pan out. But my sophomore step up is John Mechie. I want to acquire John Mechie on my teams, which is really funny because going back to our draft analysis, I didn't really like John Mechie. I didn't think he was that special. I thought he was a very fine player. I was actually surprised that when he went in the second round, I thought he was a 3rd round receiver. But he's a 2nd round receiver, went 44th overall last year. And then really unfortunate with the cancer stuff, just wasn't able to play this year. But you look at Houston. they're going to be starting over again.
Yep.
Basically. So any rapport that anyone had with any of their old quarterbacks, out the window.
Head coach gone.
Head coach gone, probably quarterback gone because they have the second overall pick. That means potentially his former teammate Bryce Young might be there. That means CJ Stroud, or if they fall in love with somebody like Will Levis. But either way, at number 2, it seems highly, highly, highly likely that they're going to be taking a quarterback at number 2 overall in the NFL draft this year. Best friend for a new quarterback is a young receiver also learning at the same time, growing together, learning. We see this happen often, and it usually means good things for both parties. Mm-hmm. I think he's a player that's talented enough. I still don't think he's an elite player. I don't think he's ever going to be this amazing wide receiver 1. But I think for the 3rd round pick, and I looked on the Dynasty Nerds trade finder, lots of John Mechie for a 3rd. There's other stuff where he's involved in big packages, so it's hard to parse out exactly what it's worth. But that was the most common thing I saw, John Mechie for a 3rd. There's a very real chance that he could be the number 1 receiver for the Houston Texans next year. If I have to give up a 3rd round pick to get a guy that's sort of in his 2nd season, even though it's his 1st season, that's the number 1 receiver for a team, I will give up a 3rd round pick all day, any day to do that. Now, we've literally not seen him play a snap of football. So there's plenty of risk involved, but at such little price, the payout of what he could potentially be for the Houston Texans is just too good to pass up.
I totally agree. I went ahead and I was kind of trying to rebuild a team this year. I wasn't super successful at it because I wasn't able to make some of the trades I wanted to make. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I did do was go out and acquire John Mechie in a trade. And I love the upside. I know we didn't see anything from him, obviously, but I liked him, I think, a bit more than you did.
I remember us arguing about him, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit more upside there as long as everything checks out after the cancer.
Health-wise,
yeah. From a health perspective. So, and like you said, if he's the number 1, even if he's the number 2 option, I think he still offers a heck of a lot of upside.
From a potentially elite quarterback.
Sure, absolutely. So I really do like that for a 3rd for sure. I mean, that's a slam dunk, easy slam, accept on that one.
Yeah, because I mean, you had to use a late 2nd to get him last
absolutely.
year.
Yeah.
So
there's a 2nd round pick,
and it's people getting scared off by the health concerns and just wanting to recoup something. I'm sure if he's going for a 3rd.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, we'll be back next week. New show, talking Dynasty. Again, we'll figure out the Nerd Herd episode here very soon. Look at our Twitter at Dynasty Nerds. We'll kind of get that information out. We apologize. Again, 2 hours of technical delays here, but we got the show out.
We did it.
And we got more coming. And we'll be back next week talking more Dynasty Fantasy Football as we inch our way closer to these rookie breakdowns, which will start right around the Senior Bowl.
Don't forget about Calvin Austin. Go out and get him. Adios.
Already forgot about him.